and welcome to the Fantasy Rewind Podcast. I am your co-host, Dylan Stoll, and as always, I'm joined by my friend Mike.
Hey.
So today, we're keeping the party going with Rings of Power, Season 2, Episode 4, which is titled...
Quattro. Just kidding. Eldest. Oldest. Nursing home.
Tom Bombadil. But we'll get into all of that stuff there. But I'm going to give out the typical reminders here first. If you want to get in contact with the show, our email is fantasyrewindpod@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram, which is @fantasyrewindpod. We're on X, which is @fantasyrewind. And we are now also on YouTube. No video yet, but that may or may not be coming down the line. That is just...
Yeah, and the handle for that one's a little weird.
Yeah.
Fantasy Rewind Pod. That's it.
Fantasy Rewind Pod. All right, that's not weird at all. That's the rest of our stuff.
No, it's not.
All right, Mike, without any more delay, let's dive into the rewind.
Fantasy Rewind. All right, Dylan, this episode, I'm just going to come out and say it right now. So I watched this episode, and I finished watching it, and I was like, I don't feel like anything happened.
It's because nothing did happen.
Oh, wow. I mean, there was a couple cool things, but like at the same time, it's very infuriating. And so I just want to jump on in here to the parts that really stuck out to me.
Sure, yeah.
Overall, what was your takeaway from this episode?
My general impression of this episode was it's the worst of the season so far. It is... Oh my gosh, just like what they're doing with Elrond and his mistrust of the ring and Galadriel, like apparently being obsessed with the ring and not trying to save the elves' lives, but really trying to protect the ring. Like that whole storyline is ridiculous.
I want to add on to that and just say that I really think that's more Elrond's perspective than Galadriel's perspective.
I
agree. We really
with
haven't
you.
gotten too much of that from Galadriel herself.
Yeah, and they did do some redemption in my eyes of her in general in this episode, but we'll get into that when we get there. Where would you like to start?
Oh, well, I guess, let's just go right to the elves and just sort of their journey, right?
Sure.
Because we get some answers in this one, which is interesting to at least what happened to the scouting, the messenger party from Linden. Sort of, I guess. I don't know. It was weird. But we have Elrond and company. You know, they have a swordsman, they have a bowman, they have a cartographer, a map reader. Like, I don't know. A wise person, kind of, I guess. Anyway, and they're going through, they find this bridge that's been, cut, destroyed by lightning, and they're like, oh, that wasn't, Galadriel's like, there was no creature that did this, no lightning did this, nothing from this earth did this, it's like foul magic. And Elrond's like, okay, well, what are our options? How do we get over, to go see Celebrimbor? And the map dude's like, because he's the only one who can read the map, apparently. Stupid. Like, just give some reason as to why he's the only one. Like, it just felt kind of weird. I mean, I thought the actor did a great job and everything else.
Yeah, no slight to the actor. It's just bad writing.
But he's like, oh, either we go through these hills over here, or we go a longer way around and that would be safer. Apparently. Because like he's like, oh, the hills, or we go around and it's longer, and Elrond's like, we're gonna go through the hills, and Galadriel has this like vision, like a hand coming out of the earth or whatever, and it's like there's evil, unnatural evil in those hills. And Elrond is like, I said we go to the hills, so we're going to the hills. And Galadriel's like, no, like, I don't want anyone to die. Like, please, let's just go around. And he's just like, well, I said what I said, so you're following me.
Well, you're forgetting something, Mike.
What did I forget?
Elrond said, I'm not trusting anything you get from that trinket. So we're going to the hills.
Gosh.
Galadriel's like, don't go. After she had the vision, and he's like, you just saw something in your ring. We're doing it.
And what was so interesting is that one of the elves, it may not have been right then, but it was maybe when they showed up there, was like, oh yeah, this is where all the dead kings were buried.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like,
yeah.
he knew, like, this place was, like, evil.
It was, like, well known that there was this whole mess of creatures there.
Yes. Yes. And I was just like, okay, so nobody else, like, Elrond didn't know this. Everyone else knew. Like, it's so stupid that just suddenly, like, oh, popped up. Yeah. By the way, there's all these evil spirits here. So they show up here where all the old human kings were buried. I forget what it was called.
The Barrow Downs.
The Barrow Downs, yes. Wasn't this in the books in the Lord of the Rings?
It was. It's actually really close to the Shire.
And isn't that where, I don't know, a certain
Tom
mythical...
Tom Bombadil. Yes.
Certain mythical being came to be, or came around in the books?
Yeah, I mean, there's the Willy window there, so I mean, Tom Bombadil resides very close to that area.
Yeah. So interesting that they brought that up. You know, so they start fighting the specters, if you will.
The Barrow
And
Wights.
they can't do the Barrow Wights. And they can't do anything to them. A couple elves get taken, you know, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, Elrond's like, yeah, you got to use their own blades against them, and cool.
I mean, not for nothing, but here's my impression of that scene there. So I thought that the Barrow Wights looked really cool. I thought the scene in general was dark, of course.
Action was great.
Very interesting. The one thing I didn't like is that we got another Avengers Assemble spin around the party shot that we got last episode as well. And it's just, how many times are you going to use that same trick? But all in all, you know, I thought that the Barrow Wight scene was fine. It was interesting enough. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was fine. I did forget to mention, though I kind of mentioned it earlier, they found that the messengers had been killed here from these creatures.
Which is a little kind of contradictory to what we saw.
Yeah, that they're just dragged off the ground, or weren't the horses still alive?
I'm not positive, but I don't
remember.
When we saw this in episode 2, it seemed like it was the orcs who were chasing after Sauron who killed these messengers.
Yes.
So to have them be in the Barrow Downs made no sense, unless these were a second pair of messengers that went after Celebrimbor and Reggian.
Yeah, because like even the background they showed, and I distinctly remember that was very lush forest.
Right.
It was not this haunting Barrow Down atmosphere.
Yes.
So, yeah, very weird, but whatever. Anyway, after this fight, they do stumble upon the giant orc encampment outside of Eregion, sorry. And, you know, they get caught in a very interesting way. Like, they weren't seen at first, but they were shooting arrows at this horse. And one of the elves ends up getting, like, shot
in the gut.
And I thought I was like, oh, okay. I was like, that was kind of neat, like a fun little kind of way to do that. And then Galadriel saves him with the ring, healing his wound, and then telling Elrond, take the ring, don't let them get it. Like, run and don't let them get it. And then he's like, oh, she cared more about the ring than anything. She wanted to protect the ring. It's like, no, dude. If she wanted to just protect the ring, she would run away with it.
Right, herself. She wouldn't sacrifice herself.
Correct. Like, she is protecting all of you, and she's protecting that ring, because if that ended up in the wrong hands, that's a problem. Like, it just seems at this point, the writers are like, oh, we're gonna make Elrond seem like he's just trying
angsty.
To, you know, yeah, like, it's like, dude, he used to be just so chill and cool, and now you're turning him into something he wasn't. Like, they took Galadriel's character, who was so angsty and everything else in the first season, fixed her for the most part. And now they've taken Elrond's character and been like, let's turn you into how she was.
Well, because what they're trying to do, which I gotta remind you, Galadriel is, at this point, hundreds of years old, if not thousands. Then you have Elrond, who's probably 100 or more years old as well. You have these elves who are ancient, acting like stupid teenagers. And it's done that way, I think, on purpose to try to make them more relatable to a younger audience, which is just dumb. I really, really dislike that.
They should be super wise, and they are not, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, Galadriel has this whole cool fight scene with the orcs, killing a lot of them, doing her super, shooty arrow thing.
Blow things up, and fire everywhere.
Yeah. And then she ends up getting caught and stopped by
Adar.
None other than Adar. And so that's going to be fun. He knows who she is right away, which is great. So next episode, that's going to be kind of the start is like, what conversation do they have? Because she's not dying.
No,
so.
She doesn't die. Unless they really want to mess this up.
Well, love to see how they resurrect her later.
Yeah. They replace Glorfindel with Galadriel.
Yeah. That's it for those elves. That elven storyline. We really have only two other storylines to cover, I believe. The halflings. Mm-hmm. Well, actually three.
Yeah, the halflings and the stranger. And then you also have Isildur, Arondir, and like that little encampment there.
Let's do that one next.
Yeah, simple enough.
Because I think the halfling one will be the one where we probably talk about the most. So with Isildur and crew, they're all out searching for their boy, Theo. And, after finding out that Isildur's girl he's hot for, you have the mark of Adar. You've been trying to burn it off. Like, you're probably evil. Right? Probably evil. And so they put her in chains, and they're, like, going to find Theo. And our elven friend there, who I'd...
Arondir
is like, I know what took him, and, like, that was it. It's just kind of like, you're like, okay.
Share with the class, please.
But you don't get that, because it's a surprise. And there was this fun little scene where, Isildur gets stuck in the muck, and all of a sudden he disappears underneath it. Very reminiscent of Star Wars. In that scene where they're in the trash compactor.
Yeah.
Arondir tries to save him, ends up getting sucked in too, and then we have our fair maiden, who you think is just going to run away, but she actually comes back with a stick, showing her true intentions are pure, and that she does like Isildur and wants to save him.
She wants that Numenorian D.
And it ends up this giant worm thing comes up out of the mud, and it gets sliced open from Arondir, and they're saved by themselves. And after that, you have some conversation between Isildur and the girl, and it seems like they're going to patch things up a little bit or something or other. She has his sword against his throat. The whole enemies to lovers thing. It's happening, right?
Yeah.
And Arondir's just sitting there with an arrow knocked, like, get a room, guys.
For real. It's like, Bronwyn, I miss you.
Yeah. And in all of this, you don't really hear from Theo at all because he's up in a tree cage. But all of a sudden, you have some trees just start swinging.
Yeah.
And they are Ents and
an Entwife.
Entress.
Entwife.
And again, visually stunning. Loved them. I thought both of them were really well done. Loved the visual effects. Loved the voices.
Yeah.
Thought it was great.
No, I did like how the Ents were portrayed. I liked their look. The one thing I will say is getting punched by a tree would probably kill you. So
that was one thing. Arondir, right?
No, it was the girl.
The girl got hit and then landed into like
a rock. She didn't get hit. She got smacked.
She should be done. Yes. That I agree with you. That was my one complaint with that scene. Other than that, I thought it was really good. Like the flailing around, the hitting. Like I was like, like they're upset as they should be, right?
That their land's getting destroyed. That their trees are getting chopped down. The one Entwife asks Arondir, "Have you ever taken blade to wood?" Mm-hmm. And he's like, Yes, I have, regrettably. And then she's like, I'm gonna kill you. That was my cousin. And basically, Arondir shows her that they're different, that they're not this like savage race or anything, that they will care and respect the woodland and protect that patch of trees. And because the Entwife is satisfied with this, she lets Theo and the rest of the wild men she had in cages go.
Yeah. And Celiodor's Boothang, who he's about to kiss, oh wait, her fiance was among them, and
then they kiss
alive.
Instead.
And they kiss instead, but she's really looking at Celiodor over his shoulder, being, "I wanted you instead."
Right? She's like, "I want that running water."
And that's kind of the end of that. Theo and Arondir are kind of like, "Yeah, we're best friends again." Oh
no, they don't say that much. But like Arondir says he's going to go off on a mission and offers Theo to come with him, and thankfully Theo declines. So maybe we won't see as much Theo going forward. Although maybe him and Celiodor will still be broing it out.
Yeah. You know what? One of my favorite things about this show going on right now is everyone's like, "Oh, Theo is the Nazgul, no, or the Witch King, or one of the Nazgul," and then the newest one I saw was Theo's the undead king.
Oh, that broke his word.
That broke his word, and I was sitting there, and when I saw that, I was like, "Huh."
That would be interesting.
I could see that.
So, I'm not sure, did you catch this, Mike? Where, as Arondir was leaving, as he was saying goodbye to Theo, he said Lord something or other.
Lord of the Southern Kingdom?
I don't know exactly what, but like he like said goodbye, Theo, Lord of whatever. And I just like was like, wait, when did Theo become a king? When did he become like a boss? Like, what gives?
I don't know. Who knows? That whole thing is weird.
Yeah.
But we're done with that. Let's jump on over to the Harfoots.
Yeah.
So they, as of last episode, they got thrown around in that sandstorm, and they wake up in a bush, tossed in, I guess, or on the ground, whatever. And, they're kind of like, where's the stranger? Where's our dude? Where's Gandalf? And they look around, they don't see him, but they do see another Hardfoot. Oh, wait, it's not a Hardfoot. It's
a different species of hobbit.
Yeah, it really is. It's the desert version.
Yes.
And it's cool because they have, and they follow him back to the society. I don't remember what his name was either, honestly.
He said that people called him No One.
Yes, No One. But that's not his real name. But No One is, he's nice. He's like, oh yeah, I'm going to help you guys out. Brings him back to the village. They get smacked around a little bit by the village elder and come to find out this whole history of the Harfoots and them. And honestly, I'm gonna be super honest with you. I didn't really care.
So here's the basics.
I should have taken notes.
Yeah, the basics of it was that the Harfoots and these people used to be one big people, and then there was a split because the Harfoot elder's ancestor wanted to find this like mythical place, basically, for the Shire. Yeah, the Shire. For them to settle down, and went off on an adventure to find them with like a clan of the halflings. And the promise was that once they find this magical place, that they'll return and grab them. Well, they forgot all about these people because this was forever ago. They ended up, the Harfoots never found this magical land, so they've been wandering around ever since.
They will, though.
Yeah, they'll find their magical place, their Shire.
The Shire. Yeah, we know they're gonna find it. Exciting for them, and then towards the end of the episode, the headhunters come back and, they're like, give us the Hardfoots. And they're like, we don't have them. And get smacked. The leader gets smacked. And I was like, ooh.
Right, like right off the bat, too.
Yeah, I know. They were trying to set the tone here. Like, you don't lie to us. And basically it was like, if you don't help us, then the mean wizard's gonna make you. It's gonna do to you what he did to us.
Right. He's like, you want to see what's
Still
behind
don't
this
know.
mask? And I'm like, yes, please. Let's see what's going on.
Yes, I would like to see it. Yeah, it's probably gonna be just disfigured face, or watch it's like perfect or something.
Right. It's like, look what he did to me. He turned you into a model.
Yeah.
He shaved you.
Oh, does he does touch-ups the whole body? Like but anyway, that's kind of it for them for this. And then we have the stranger. And this is the most interesting part of this episode. At least in my opinion.
It is.
So we have a couple things here that go on. We have the stranger sort of walking around looking for Nori, right? Doesn't find her, and Poppy doesn't find him, and instead stumbles upon a man who's gardening in the desert and has this really nice house. And there's this big old tree out back. And, he's like, oh, like, do you know where I'm going? I'm looking for these stars. And the guy's no help, right? He's just like, oh, okay, I don't know. Throws his map up, or the map gets caught in the wind and flies by the tree. He goes to get it, and he's like it's weird. He's like trying to move the branch instead of just grabbing the piece of paper off.
No, he's trying to break the branch off and make a wizard staff out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, which is weird. Anyway, and then the tree's like, no, thank you, and grabs him and sucks him in. And I forget what that's called, right? It's when an ent turns like dormant.
Yeah. When an ent becomes like a wild thing and like loses its like sentience almost, and becomes kind of like mad.
Yeah, it's just stuck in place. And so I think this was called Ironwood.
This one was an Ironwood, yes. But
yeah,
in the Silmarillion, in the Fellowship of the Ring, there's Old Man Willow who acts pretty much like this, except it's in the Willy Window. So that's where Tom Bombadil belongs. So they basically took his get-up from right outside the Old Forest and shoved it out here into Rune. Because they're trying to ruin it.
Anyway, Tom comes up and is like, hey, let him go. Lets him go, brings him inside, and he's just like, what do you want? He's like, oh, teach me magic, and, and he's like, oh, I don't get involved in this stuff, which is true. Yep. Tom Bombadil doesn't get involved in that sense. Like, he is helpful to the protagonists, in The Lord of the Rings, he gives Frodo, well, not Frodo, but the rest of the crew, like, blades, right? Not just any old blades, like actually
Barrow
special
down.
elven made Barrow down blades. Oh yes, Barrow down blades. It's kind of strange seeing him in this environment because he didn't seem either, and maybe this is just my perspective, but he always came across to me in The Lord of the Rings very whimsical, very happy, cheerful kind of, and here we got like a very toned down version.
Very much toned down. That I was going to bring this up if you didn't, so I'm glad you are. Like, to me, Tom Bombadil is an 11 out of 10 at all times on the whimsy side of things. And when you meet him in the Fellowship of the Ring, you get that immediately. Like, he's out there singing at the top of his lungs, jumping and like skipping around, dressed in like yellow boots and blue jacket with a big old brown hat, like very, very whimsical. And like even when he like rescues the hobbits from the Barrow Downs, he does so in a way that's full of whimsy. When he rescues the hobbits from Old Man Willow, he does it again in a way that's full of like laughter and whimsy. And so the Tom Bombadil we get here in Rune, Far From Where He Belongs, is like a 2 out of 10 at most, as far as the joy factor that he exudes. And to me, that is the biggest miss for Tom Bombadil, especially the first time this character is being portrayed in live action.
Yeah. Now, I do wonder if they'll build towards it, because he was there, like you said, to see the old forest that used to be there that was destroyed, and so maybe he's in a bit of a somber mood because of that. But
I mean, the way that
is kind of a miss.
The way that Tom Bombadil was portrayed in the books, nothing would bring his spirits down. Like nothing.
He's been there since the beginning.
Yeah, and I mean, I do like this because he does like speak in riddles like that to the hobbits as well. Like they ask, "Who are you, master?" Because he has them call him master because he's master of things, basically. And he's like, "Oh, I'm the eldest. I was here before the stars were born, or whatever, like that." But because his whole spiel that he does to the Gandalf blue wizard thing that we don't know who it is. It's going to be Gandalf. But, he does that whole big spiel here, but he takes it a step farther, where he does say he doesn't get involved. Like, he doesn't. But then he says he trained the Dark Wizard.
Yes, and he turned evil and yada, yada, yada. And you already know he's going to train Gandalf as well. So, yeah, it's fine. I'm glad they brought him in, but I'm interested to see where it goes from here. But
yeah, I mean, I think he's far from where he belongs. The other thing that he did...
But I mean, at the same... And I would dispute this with you and probably anyone else. If you were the eldest, if you had been around since time began, you probably wouldn't stay in one place the entire time. So I could see him going around, but like, so that part I don't necessarily like have an issue with. It's more so like, I don't get involved in big things, but let me teach you how to do magics. And, I also taught this other wizard how to do magic. And
he broke bad.
Okay.
And...
Yeah. Like,
the other thing though is like, he straight up lied to the wizard about Goldberry. Cause you hear Goldberry mentioned by name in this episode, which is Tom Bombadil's wife and aka the River's daughter. And you hear her talking for like a split second. You don't see her. And then Tom Bombadil is talking to her as well. And then the wizard's like, "Oh, who were you talking to out there?" "Oh, no one. It's just me." "Or are you here?" Like, so he just straight up lies to the wizard unless like there's going to be some weirdness about like how he's communicating to Goldberry across long distances or something like that.
Yeah. I think it might be something like that. But, because, like, there wasn't anyone else in there.
No.
So, I mean, he wasn't maybe not necessarily lying, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of those things. And maybe they're like, oh, that's like a fun, like, whimsical little thing to do or whatever, but whatever. This episode was, I agree with you, probably the weakest. It just felt like not a lot happened. The fight sequences were cool and interesting, but, well, I mean, at least the one, no, I mean, they were okay.
They were okay. The Barrow White one was
reviewing.
my favorite of the fighting because it wasn't necessarily as over the top as Galadriel's final stand fight, and we got to see some cool special effects with the Barrow Whites themselves.
That's true. Yeah. That's pretty much it for me on this episode. I'm interested to see what happens next.
Yeah, I mean, same here. I wanna see if Bombadil steps up the whimsy or if they indeed just like mute him down and turn him into a shell of himself, which is unfortunately my fear. But
probably
this is still, okay enough. I'd rather have some semblance of a Lord of the Rings show than not. So we'll see where this goes. But it's going to be it for us. It's going to be two nerds signing off.
Yep.
See ya.
See ya.